Today we're doing a repair and service on a Mitsubishi Pajero 2004 model. Got 3.2 litre diesel in it. Got the 5-speed auto in it, and we're just doing a quick scan. They got it towed home and been scared to drive it ever since. So there's a few little codes there it's picking up. And nothing seems to be for the auto trans. I've just put the other scanner on, just doing the generic scan on it. Nothing on the generic scan, we're doing the vehicle specific scan now. Hopefully we'll get a code there. And there's a few fault codes found, but nothing specific to the automatic transmission. Now I've got the V5A51 Mitsubishi 5-speed in this, and you can see there's a bit of an oil leak somewhere. So you got your rear speed sensor up there. It's all damp everywhere. Might have even been coming out of the breather at the top there. Looks like that front one there, if you can see there's oil on it, so that one's leaking. And the inhibitor switch is all oily too. So there's a fair bit of oil dripping out of it. Doesn't look like it's ever been serviced. Now we've got to take the cross member off. So we've got 4 bolts here, 2 either side of the mounts and 2 on the outside, just so we can get access to those rear pan bolts. So we'll just whiz that off. I'll take the valve body off. We're going to take off all these little electrical connectors, and there's actually a chart there that shows how you get the valve body off. You can see they've made it pretty complicated. There's 5 different types or lengths of bolts to get the valve body off. What I usually do, saves a bit of time, you get a tray that has a lot of ribs like this, and you just, if you can imagine rows of bolts this way, and you just set them up in your tray there like that, and you'll know which one goes where. Pull the bolts out. And before you pull it out, just make sure you can pull it out evenly, because what will happen, these have got 1, 2, 3, 4 accumulators on there, and there's also a little filter screen that sits in here. These O-rings can also drop out, so be aware that they're there. When you're putting it back, just make sure they're still stuck in there, or ideally replace them. Here we've got the band adjustment for it as well. So you take the little cover off with the circlip, and then there's the band adjustment. Important to just count how many turns in you go and tension it up to 44 inch-pound, not foot-pound, inch-pound, and back off 5.5 to 5 3/4 turns. If it goes in more than that, you'll know that the band is a little bit worn. And there's what I'm talking about. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 accumulators. I'm not sure whether the springs are all the same or different, so it's a good idea to make sure they're all together in the same spot. And also that little filter screen there. And here I've got the ATSG manual for the 5-speed, the V5A51, and you can see where the solenoids are located. You can see where the filter hole is, so that's the front of the vehicle at the bottom there. And it's also got the 4-speed there, just for reference. There's the plug if you want to test the resistances for the solenoids while it's still in the vehicle. There's the solenoid air testing procedure in the ATSG manual, and it just shows you where the oil, or the air in this case, will pass through when it's energized and de-energized, or on or off. And all the solenoids on these are the same. The valve body out, you can also do an air pressure test on your clutches and just see if they're working okay, and there are the locations for that. Torquing the valve body, the tension for it is 97 inch-pound or 11 Newton-meter. Here we have the clutch and band application chart. You can see which ones are applied in each of the gears. Okay, you can see the front of the transmission there where the filter pickup is. We've got the torque converter clutch solenoid and the reduction solenoid, or the the reduction tube brake. So I'm going to replace these two. Here I've got the solenoid application chart, and you can see here the torque converter clutch solenoid and the reduction second brake solenoid are on in both 4th and 5th. These other ones, the underdrive solenoid, that one's actually coming on in park, in reverse and 5th gear. So we don't seem to have, in the test drive, we don't have any issues there with the reverse, neutral. We do have trouble of it jumping in and out of 4th and 5th gear, and also the torque converter disengaging. The same with the second solenoid. You can see that one's applied in some other gears. 3rd, we don't have an issue with 3rd. And as well as the overdrive solenoid, that one's on in all those selections. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flush them all out as best I can. Ideally you'd need to either replace them or pull them apart to clean them 100%, but we're doing a sort of repair job here. So, and you can see that the reduction solenoid is only on in 4th and 5th, and also the torque converter clutch is only on in 4th and 5th. And it actually does say, and this is in the ATRA shop manual, you can see the torque converter clutch is dependent on throttle position, temperature and vehicle speed. So that's what's happening in 4th and 5th. So more than likely it's the torque converter clutch solenoid, but as a precaution I'm going to replace the reduction solenoid as well and flush the rest of them out. And on the valve body you got the torque converter clutch solenoid, and 1, 2, 3, that one there, no, that's the second brake, that one. So that one and that one I'm going to replace, and the rest I'm going to, I'll actually put the new ones here and I'll just flush these up. I might even swap them around, or I'm not going to sort of worry about where they come out of. But I'll definitely move these two aside. They're the ones I'm replacing, so I don't want to get them mixed up. So to get these off, you just take off these little bolts, and that's like a little bracket that holds them all in place. There's like a big rubber flange there, and you just slide them out. You just wiggle it out. You may need 2 hands to do it. They were bloody tight in there, but that's a good thing. It means the seals are sealing quite well. So just make sure you don't break these coil bits out when you're trying to get it off. What I did was I rotated them just so I could have a little bit of something to hold on to while I'm working it left and right and in and out. So I'm just going to put these aside. I'll test them later, just out of curiosity's sake. and the reductor one. And these I'll just flush out, demagnetise, flush them out, put some power to it, and just clean them as best I can. If you're doing that, just you can blow it out with air or whatever, but good idea to demagnetise. Okay, I've got the new ones there, and you'll just make sure you've got the right one before you open it, because that's basically the note that you get along with the solenoid. So, and you can see that these ones will do the F4A42s, the F4A51, and the F5A51. So, there you go. If you open it out of that packet, they won't take it back even if it's the wrong one. Now again, we're on the ATSG manual. You can see that they've all got between 2.7 and 3.4 ohms at 68 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 20 degrees Celsius. So today we've got about 35 degrees here, so we are going to get a little bit of a higher resistance. The resistance usually goes higher as they warm up. There I've got the new one, and we're getting 3.5 ohms. So I'm going to take that as a base for all these. And we'll just check them before we give them a flush out. Yeah, 3.6. It's that one's touching. I actually must have bent that little terminal in a bit on that one. .6. .6. 3.6, so they're all about the same. And that's a new one. So slightly less, 0.1 of an ohm. Okay, they've all been flushed out. You can see how much, there are magnets underneath our wash pan. You can see how much muck came out of it. Plus, when I was blowing it out with the compressor through this hole, it was all shooting out here as well. So even more muck came out. So I'm happy about that. And if you're testing these, you test them with amperage. You have something, a jigger that you can alternate the amperage, and that'll move that valve across. What it actually does, these two holes will be open, and then what it does, it just closes one hole and it'll come out the other one. So you just want a nice steady movement of that valve. I'm not going to bother testing it, testing all of them. I'll just hook up the power, see what I'm talking about. 10.5 volts, and that's drawing about 2.36 amps. And that's just using 12 or 10.5 volts. And now I'll switch it on, and I'll just adjust the current. There you go. Clicking at about 5.6 volts. You saw that amperage going up. What actually happened, I left it on and the coil was warming up. So you could see the amps were going up slowly as it was heating up. Now you'll notice that these have a little slot on there, and that's where the terminals poke through the bottom. On some other transmissions you'll find these slots are, you know, all different angles, so you've got to align those solenoids up before you put it in. Now I'm just going to push all these in slowly. I've smeared them with a bit of oil, seals, and I'm just going to work it in slowly, keeping all the plugs down to the bottom. This will go in very, very hard, so what I do is I just put that bracket on just loose. What I do is I just sort of use my fingers as a clamp on both hands, and I just sort of wiggle, rotate it slowly, and it just pops in. I've done these two. You can see it's gone right in, and I've got these four to do. Bracket's all in, and I've just done it up. That bracket actually bottoms out on that valve body housing. So that part of it's done. We can move on to now replacing the O-ring on the selector shaft. So there's the shaft that we're talking about. We've got to pull this, knock this little pin out, be a little pin there, knock that up. And we're going to first undo the inhibitor switch or the range sensor, and then that shaft can just come out this way. I think it just comes out. Sometimes they do go in as well, and there'll be just a little O-ring on that. Taking the nut off, 14mm. I'm just going to swing it out of the way above that front tail shaft, and now we're going to take these two 10mm bolts off and just slide that off. And I'll put that up, swing that out of the way as well. So there it is. It looks like it comes out this way, and now I've got to knock that pin out. Just note how everything was sitting, and then just slide that out, and there'll be an O-ring on that shaft. Now you can see it's a roll pin, so just find the suitably sized punch and just punch that out through the top. You don't have to go all the way, you can leave it sitting in that ring, but it has to clear that inner shaft to be able to slide it out. Okay, I've tapped it through, punch, just gently, and you know when you're through when this will slide through like this. So now I should be able to, there you go, just slide that out, and now I've ran into another little issue. I've got to undo that front tail shaft so I can slide that out and see it's hitting there. Or I can go one better and not take the tail shaft off and just take that O-ring off there where it is, and then I can just slide it all back in. There's a linkage right out. That linkage there, it just pivots out of that, so it comes out easy. I'm just going to take that roll pin out, and I'm just going to knock it in a little bit, just so I don't lose it. It's easier to do it when it's out of the car than get it started in the car. Seal remover there. It's got a pointy end on one end and like a screwdriver end on the other, but it's tiny. Just won't focus for some reason. And I'm just going to pick that out and just take the seal off. Once I've got that O-ring off, that can actually even just slide out through the middle of the case. There we go. Okay, I've got the old seal, done the new seal. I'll just try it in that groove and just make sure it's raised a bit. That looks good. You can feel that it's a bit raised there, so that's the part that'll be sealing. Where the pinhole is, just so I can just knock it in without trying to find the hole. It's a little bit difficult sometimes, so I can see which way it goes. And I've taken the O-ring off, and I'll push it right in. and put that O-ring in, and then I've got to put that linkage back in, and the parking pawl. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a little circlip on it. So I can actually take the circlip out, push it through, get the seal off from the inside, and the seal's big enough to just manoeuvre over the loom, so you don't have to unplug it up the top there. Bit of solvent on it. Another little squirt. And you might be able to see that circlip a little bit easier now. That's what the circlip looks like. It's pressed from the top down. It's quite easy to come off, it's only holding plastic. Blow out, and I've pushed it through now. Now I can get that O-ring off, and I can just manoeuvre it down over these little connections. I'll just manoeuvre it over all these and get it off. Large seal. It's like it's a 130 section, 130 thousandth of an inch. The bag supply, and they're actually 135 section, so that makes sense if it's flattened out a little bit. So this one's a little bit too big. It'd be impossible to push in if it was a little bit bigger, and this one's just a tiny bit smaller, but because it's 5 thou all the way around, thicker, even though it's a little bit smaller, tiny bit, you can hardly see it. Just try and line up top and bottom. It'll actually stretch. When it stretches, it'll thin out a little bit. And before I put it on, I'm just going to give around the plug a good blowout, inside and outside. You don't want any muck getting caught in there and causing a leak later. It's a pretty big job to get to it again. Got the new seal in, and you can feel it. It is a little bit raised. When you're pushing it in, don't just force it in. Just sort of try and weave it in. And I'm just going to also put a little bit of transmission fluid on there, just so it slides in a little bit easier. It doesn't appear to have a really big chamfer there, so it can cut that seal while you're pushing it in. Just a matter of pushing it in and putting that circlip back on the outside. Just use 2 thumbs, one on either side of the plug, and just sort of slowly pushed it in, trying to rotate it, get it to do a little bit of a hula dance, and it'll just pop in once it gets past that sharp edge there. And you can feel that the edge is quite sharp, so then you can have a look with the torch, just make sure there's no little bits of rubber there. If it's got any rubber there, it means it's cut the seal. You'll have to take it off and put another one on. I'm going to put the parking pawl lever back in there. Just make sure you get it in the right spot in there, not above it. And we're going to push this pin back in. You can see I've marked where the hole is to just help me line up where the pin goes in. Alright, I've got the rod in, got the selector shaft in, and now I'm just going to, I've lined up the pin with the hole, and now just tap it in. Tap the pin right in, make sure you just go flush, don't go right through, and just double check that that is going to activate the park. You can see it in there. A little bit hard to see as low light. There you have it. Replace the O-ring on the loom and on the O-ring on the selector shaft. To put the valve body back on, I've washed that, flushed it out with solvent so it's nice and dry, and I've just put that filter in there with some petroleum jelly or Vaseline just to hold it in there until I get the valve body up. Now just make sure none of these O-rings have fallen out, or this sleeve here, and just have a bit of a look around, make sure nothing's fallen out of place. Double check your work, make sure you've done everything put everything back where it should be before you put it all back together. The differences in the accumulators, so I've just washed them off with a bit of solvent and just marked them just in case it comes off while I'm fitting it. I marked the springs 1, 2, 3, and I didn't put any marks on the rear one. So I've used nail polish because it seems to stay on a little bit better than texture or liquid paper. So hopefully this will all go up nice and easy. Also, there's these little guide sleeves. Make sure they're in place. You can see they just slide in there. And I'll just put these on here. I'll just pivot the valve body just so I can gain access to the bolts front and rear, and then I'll just jack it up slowly until I get it close in place. You might have to just wriggle these accumulators in with a screwdriver or something to line it up, and then you bolt it up. That filter we've already put in the case there. It's a little bit awkward doing it while it's in the car. It's much easier when it's on the bench. I mentioned this little pin on the selector shaft to stop it from moving in and out. Don't forget to put that in as well. And it just slides in like that. Well, just be careful. You might have to stick it in with a bit of petroleum jelly. Just make sure it doesn't fall out. Note, this slot here is where there's a selector pin that slots into that. So you've got to slot that in as well as line up all these accumulators. Make sure your filter hasn't fallen out as well. And all those O-rings. I keep mentioning that, but I can't stress how important that is. And that selector pin is just there. You can see, got to line that up in that slot. This angle, you can see the differences in the springs. That's why you mark them. If they do fall out on your first attempt, at least they're all marked where they need to go. It saves you measuring and going through the shop manual to make to see which one goes where. And I've just rigged up this little stand here. I've got access to the front bolts, and at the rear I've got access to the rear bolts. So I'm just going to slowly lift this up very carefully so it nothing falls out of place. And I might need to just readjust where these accumulators line up with a screwdriver as I go. Pin's still in place, which is a good thing. It is a fairly heavy valve body, so you got a slim chance of getting it all in on your own, unless you do something like this, hook it up to a stand. Pretty close, and now we've got to just align that pin into that slot there. So I've got to move it around a little bit. It is a little bit awkward and fiddly, but just be patient. And also those accumulators have lined up in the hole now too. Select the linkages in, and you can see I've had to tilt it to the angle of the transmission, and it appears that like I can wriggle all these accumulators except for the front one. The front one seems to be misaligned, or the second one. So you just have to give it a just lower the jack a little bit and just give it a wriggle, it'll pop in. Got it all back on. I still haven't tightened it up. I'm going to put all the bolts in just loose. Make sure those little guide sleeves are in. Just double check that your selector's in the slot. A little bit hard to see in there. And the accumulators are all nice and loose, and they've just gone in quite well. All the bolts in, it's still loose. You can see all the bolts are in place. And now I'm just going to do up the middle section just so it holds it all up and tension all the rest of it up. And just in case you've accidentally loosened one of the other bolts that aren't actually holding the valve body up to the case, it's a good idea to just check all the other ones while you're there. And what I do, I just go through from one side and then I stand at the rear of the vehicle and just go through. I do it twice, just recheck it, make sure I haven't missed any bolts. And now I'm going to just blow out this sensor, and that one bolts back up here at the front, and readjust all the, reattach all the little terminals to the solenoids. Just a quick double check of everything before you put the filter on. And also check your tray, your wash tray there, just make sure there's no O-rings or spare parts, bits and pieces in there. If there are, it means something's fallen out while you were returning the valve body. Putting the new filter on, make sure you've got the right, or the same one. That one's got a short little snorkel on it. So these come in two different types. There's one that has no snorkel, it's just completely flat, and these are the deep pan filters. Also a good idea to just make sure that O-ring's there before you put it in. If there's no O-ring, you're going to be in strife, it's going to be sucking air. Before I put the selector on, I'm going to replace that front or input speed sensor as well. So it's a little bit confined there, you can't really see it, but it's just one bolt and it comes off. There's a little plug there as well. And we'll put back the inhibitor switch. You should have a mark on, like a dirty mark where it was. They are a little bit adjustable. Try and put it back to where it was. And the selector linkage. Don't also, I can't remember if I mentioned that little spring on the selector as well. Don't forget to put that back on. It would have been easy if I took that dipstick out, but you still can get access to it. Just pull the plug off. You just have to press the outer side of the little clip there, and it's towards the front of the vehicle and just pulls out. Sometimes it's got a lot of road dirt and whatever on it. It's a good idea to blow it out so you can see where it is a little bit better. And there it is. Just a little 3-pin sensor. We do a quick comparison, just make sure it all looks the same, the clip's the same. This one just seems like the clip is a little bit smaller, but that might not matter as long as it fits into there. And the rest of it looks very similar. New one, just smear a little bit of oil on that O-ring, it'll just go in a little bit easier. And again, as you want, pushing it in, just sort of turn it so you don't cut that seal, don't force it in. Giving the pan a bit of a clean, new pan seal, and as per usual, I'm just going to leave these magnets up on that little ridge again, so there's more surface area of the magnet working, so it can work underneath a little bit and on top. Now on these transmissions, to replace the solenoids on their own, you might be tempted to just lower the valve body, loosen the bolts, but what can happen, or where people come into strife, is that pin on that selector, that little pin, not the roll pin, that stops it from moving left and right. So what some people do, they lower the valve body to gain access to the bolts, to the solenoids, and then that pin actually drops out on top of the valve body. They bolt it back up and then they run into trouble. So with these transmissions, basically you have to remove, or it's probably wiser to remove the valve body completely to replace these solenoids. I had to do it anyway to gain access for those O-rings that I replaced on the Selector shaft and on the Loom. But anyway, the choice is yours. Another thing is to just make sure that that gasket doesn't tear or rip or anything like that. If it does, then you have to replace the gasket, pull the valve body apart to replace it. Okay, good idea to double check and triple check your work as you go along. Everything's been put back. I've put the cross member back on. I'm also just going to check the transfer case oil level. Sometimes if these are over full, it means the seal between the transmission and the transfer case is leaking as well, so that's a good indicator of that. And one other little thing I'm going to do, over here I've got the transmission oil cooler. It's actually got one up there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass the radiator. You can see this pipe here is coming from the transmission going into the cooler, and this one's going through the cooler sleeve and back up into the separate cooler up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one off here and just put it straight into that pipe there. That way we'll completely bypass that radiator. To bypass the radiator is, if you have a look, distance from here to here is probably about a bit over a foot, and this is basically what's built into the radiator. It's just like a sleeve. The oil just circulates through there. The problem is that over time, seals or the plastic cracks and you get a tiny bit of coolant going into the transmission. While the transmission or the motor's running, the pressure in the cooling line for the transmission is about the same as what's in your radiator. But when you turn the ignition off, the pressure remains in the radiator, and that's where you'll get coolant going into the transmission. And what actually happens, the coolant reacts with the transmission fluid, and also it can and will be absorbed into your clutch linings and band linings and in the torque converter linings as well. Very hard to flush it out. You can't. It's basically, you're on a limited lifespan then once coolant gets into the transmission. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to bypass the radiator or the cooler that's built into the radiator, and also that will eliminate the possibility of water going in or coolant going into the transmission. And also, if there's a transmission overheating problem, it's not going to overheat your motor, and vice versa. Now I'm going to just basically plug the hose that goes from the cooler straight back into the transmission. It is long enough, but what can happen sometimes is there'll be a sharp bend there, so you've got to be very careful of that. You don't want to restrict the transmission flow. So if it's got a sharp bend anywhere, then it's a good idea to just replace it. Maybe put a longer hose on there so you don't have a sharp bend. And over here I'm just going to leave all these pipes here. I'm just going to put a hose from here to here, so if ever he wants to put it back, he can just it's just a matter of reconnecting the hose back on. There we go. That's basically what I've done. Just joined the cooler hose through there like that. I've got to put that clamp back on and completely bypass the radiator transmission oil cooler. And the reason why I've done it like this, if ever the cooler blows or starts to leak, you can just, there's enough hose there to just bypass the cooler or the transmission oil cooler, and he can put it back through the radiator. So being a four-wheel drive, sometimes these things happen, so it's just something extra for him. Stone guards back on. And I'm just going to quickly check the transfer case fluid level, and you'll also see if there's any, if there's extra fluid there, then you possibly have a leaking seal. But there you go, it's enough there, and it's the right colour and the right level. And we're going to fill it up with the ATF synthetic multi-trans. A bit hard to see there now, but it is equivalent to the recommended Mitsubishi fluid. And I'm going to put a hose down the filler tube because it's quite narrow. It'll just make filling a lot quicker. The funnel, you'll get an airlock there, and it'll take ages to fill. So that's a little trick as well. Just put a hose right down. Got about 6 litres in there. So now we can start it up, go through the gears, and check the oil level. Oh, one drive. Select it a few times. Okay, we'll just check the oil level now. A bit low, so I've added another 2 litres, 8 litres in total so far, and I'll just check it again now. Over full, so I probably should have put another litre instead of 2 litres in there. So anyway, it's a little bit over full. I'll take for a run now, and we'll just suck a little bit out with our vacuum pump. We're just going to suck a little bit of oil out. We're overfilled it a bit, and the job's done. Thank you for watching.